Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we finish up the 4-part mini-series from PBS called Native America. So we're going to be looking at New World Rising. So this is the last of the series. It's a magnificent series. I cannot rave and recommend this more. This is absolutely, utterly fantastic. Something that's on my to-buy list to eventually show my daughter, who, at this point is very little. So now this specific one focuses on, it roots itself in the Apache and the Comanche, the horse-dwelling people of the American Southwest, who depict the typical, very mobile teepees, horses. So this is kind of where it focuses. And it talks about their culture, but it does a couple of other things as well. It talks about something that I've never heard of, how a priest later in the conquistadors in the conquest thought it was a good idea to, in order to convert the natives of, the Aztecs, have them write their history in Spanish and in their native language. Now, of course, he does not speak Aztec. What they ended up doing was, on one side, they wrote pretty much what the Spanish wanted them to do, which is a, for lack of a better word, whitewashed history. Kendra, not get into trouble. Cats. And on the other side, in their own language, they wrote the bloody truth, literally. They, literally wrote the blood, the gore, the horror of how the Spanish came in and slaughtered unarmed people, and how disease decimated their people, and why they were writing this. A lot of this was made, they had color illustrations, and they talked about how these series of codexes, these books that are in Spain, they still exist, the paint they use is very different from what they use in Europe. How the Europeans used things like minerals and dirts and clays, and that's at least dirt, and rocks to create their paints. The Aztecs used more, and stop trying to climb and cause problems. Sorry, irritating cats. They used living things. They used plants. They used fungus. They used parasites and worms, basically living things, to create their paints. Yes, this is a very, very annoying animal. She's almost 13. Very, very annoying. And they use these paints. But in the last codex, there's only very select colors used. And that was because their people were dying like crazy. So there was disease that was only affecting the natives. They have no idea what it was. And so their friends and their families, their teachers, their parents were dying around them. And so a lot of this is simply in black ink. But they're telling this story. They tell their history in all its detail, and it's preserved. And until recently, they didn't realize what this is. They thought it was one translation to another, and no. Very, very different. The Aztecs wrote the truth in their own language, because the Spanish couldn't understand it. So in Spanish, they wrote basically what the Spanish wanted to hear. And then in Aztec, again, they wrote, yeah, you guys came and slaughtered our people, completely destroyed everything, and you were batshit crazy. And pretty much murdered us for no good reason otherwise than the fact that you were crazy. So it's very, very interesting. So you realize that they have preserved, in writing this, their culture and their history and their language. And that's really the theme of this video, is as much as the white man, be the Spanish, the Portuguese, the French, the English, possibly the Dutch, I'll throw the Dutch in there, because they were in New York, have tried to wipe out the native people of the Americas, be this north, south, central. The native people still exist. They're still here. They're not part of history. They're part of the present. As they talk about how the Apaches, what they ended up doing is they got hold of the horse, which again comes from Europe. They got a hold of this from the Spaniards. Spaniards used it against them. And even in early parts of the United States as a country, they were still pretty much running the West. So they had this absolutely huge empire that lasted with the horse until basically the U.S. government came in and caught their herd and shot all their horses and pretty much made them surrender. Mind you, they'd already been devastated by disease. That was the other thing. What they couldn't bring with their guns, the English brought with smallpox, malaria, which, yes, you find in South America. It does not belong there. It originates in Africa. Influenza, most likely measles, rubella, which is what we also call German measles, chickenpox, all sorts of diseases that just decimated them because they'd never been exposed to them. So they killed these people just by spreading disease. And of course, they probably raped and murdered people because, of course, that's what they did. And the Pope is even, they mentioned this, well, I don't know if they, with this video or the next one, they mentioned it again in this video, how the Pope pretty much declared that, and this is virtually referring mostly to Spain, that you can rape, murder, and take all the lands of the native people because they are heathens. So they mentioned that this is, that the U.S. Supreme Court bring this up in a 2005 decision against the Iroquois Nation. Apparently they quote this. Now, after this video, I'm going to go ask my husband about that. He's an attorney, and that's kind of what he does. But that's kind of frightening. But again, the real message of this video is hope. Is even on the reservations, even in Peru, where their culture has continued. And on the reservations, they continue to nurture and start to really bring back their culture to prevent it from dying. And the Apache and the Comanche have taken root in their reservations and brought back their culture. They continue to manage the horses. They continue to teach their cultures to the next generation and try to bring things back healthier. It talks about some tribes in Northern California where they're finally getting listened to by the local authorities that they need to do controlled burns in the forest in order to take care of the invasive species and keep the forest healthy. And the conservationists are now realizing, wait a minute, these guys knew what they were doing when they were lighting these fires here. This helps. We're trying to, it kills off the invasive species and allow native species to thrive. It allows the plants and the animals to come through here. This is a good thing. And so they're finally being listened to, but they're passing on their stories. They're passing on their cultures. They are very much a voice of, we are not the past. We are still here. Our culture is still being preserved. We are still sharing it. We are passing it on to the next generation. We're trying to share this ideas of respecting nature, living with the land to the next generation, not only of their own people, but our own. And everybody else living here. And the world in general. I mean, I wouldn't say we're destroying the planet, we're making it unlivable for humans. That's one of the things always people keep saying, people who, like myself, we don't want global climate change to happen. Not because we're trying to save the planet. The planet will be fine. It ain't going nowhere. Until the sun turns supernova and explodes, the planet's not going nowhere. We can't destroy the planet. We can't, I don't think we have enough power to blow the darn thing up. But we can make it unlivable for life. Or particularly life as we know it, particularly us. So, the reality is, like the Native Americans, and pretty much anybody else who's trying to fight and promote conservation and the less use of gases that are heating up the planet and driving climate change, We're selfish. Seriously, we're selfish. We're not trying to save the planet. We're trying to stop from dying, essentially. And from our generations from now, from dying. Because we are making the planet unlivable for life as we know it. So, yeah. Even the Native Americans, I mean, as much as they are respecting the land, by doing so, they're able to coexist with it and survive and thrive. The entire point, as is most humans, is we're trying to live and survive. So by living with the land, by doing these things, developing, corn and potatoes feed a lot of the world. They were developed by native cultures in the Americas. Yeah, they made those. Tomatoes go along with that. Sorry, Italy, but tomatoes come from the Americas, as do pretty much all your squash species and chocolate. Yeah, a lot of the foods that we eat today. I think sugar might be coming from that, maybe from Asia. But still, a vast majority of the people, besides eating rice, eat potatoes and corn. And it comes from here. And then, of course, there's tomatoes. So, these things originate, and of course, the ever-loving chocolate. And yes, I do love my chocolate. So does my child. So does my husband. We have a steady flow of chocolate in this house. But it originates here in the Americas. And even as a wise person, part of mine and my husband's culture, we were part of the conquering force, so to speak. I don't know if they have direct involvement, haven't gone back that far in history, but we were the invaders, essentially. And yet, I fully respect native cultures, and this is an amazing way to teach it. You have those native voices. You hear how advanced these cultures were throughout all of this series. You hear how they are continuing, particularly in this last video. They are continuing their culture, and we need to nurture that. I want my daughter to understand and respect and revere these native cultures because they were here first, and they have a vast, amazing history, as interesting as Egyptians and ancient Greece and ancient Rome, with societies just as advanced and empires just as large. So they are definitely something that deserves attention and learning and knowledge. I did not get that knowledge in high school or elementary school. I did grow up in Hawaii, so I have a kind of a unique perspective. We learned about the conquering, and it was definitely put in a negative light of how the people pretty much destroyed, how Queen Liliuokalani was imprisoned in the Iolani Palace, and locked up and forced to give up her nation, how they stopped, how the missionaries stopped the hula, the dances of the native people, because they thought it was profane, and how Queen Kalakaua, Queen Liliuokalani's brother, brought it back. That's the reason they have a huge festival in Hawaii. I think it takes place on the Big Island. I have a small child. We had a busy day. We had a busy day, so I'm tired. Sorry, the yawning. But he brought back, we have the Merry Monarch Festival in Hawaii every year. And so I grew up very much learning and respecting the land. I grew up not far from the ocean and understanding the power of it and learning to respect the land. And it's something that I cherish and something I plan to teach my daughter. I enjoy being outside. I enjoy being out in nature. I enjoy just listening to the birds and listening to life and seeing life and experiencing nature. And I take energy from that, from being outside, which unfortunately living in the American Southwest, coming around. I'm filming this in April, nearing the end of our outdoor season because it's getting too bloody hot. We cannot go outside. And by the time you guys see this, we'll be back in season, so we'll be back enjoying the outdoors again. And I'm very much a person who enjoys spending time outside. Mind you, I also enjoy indoor plumbing. Because of the indoor plumbing and the air conditioning, particularly in this state. But I do enjoy spending time outside when the weather is nice. So, and I take energy from being outside among the green and the grass and the rain. So, trying not to yawn here. But that's the end of this video, besides me ranting and raving. These are fantastic. All of them. I cannot rave about these enough. Every homeschooler should watch these. Seriously. And particularly go into the vast array of native cultures in the Americas, because they deserve as much study and as much attention as anything I learned in school about Europe and Egypt and all sorts of things. So that's the end of this video and this series. Highly recommended. You'll have the links to Amazon just because, you know, it's easy. I don't get money from this. I post it because it's easy to find the information. You can buy it wherever you want or watch it wherever you want. I think you can actually buy a prescription to PBS, which I might link there, and watch it there as well. I'm probably going to buy them. So at some point, it's going to be on my list. So that is it for this video. Please check out the rest of the channel. I do cover Native Americans every November. This is my second year doing it. So I cover films. Last year I did not films, but I looked over some of the resources provided by the Smithsonian Museum of the American Indian, as well as various books. And then this year, I'm specifically, as well as these 4 videos, I'm focusing on a specific author whose name I cannot pronounce. It's Joseph something. And I'm covering his books as well. And that is what I do. If you're familiar with my channel, pretty much all the books specifically that I cover on, be they indigenous people, African Americans, Africans in general, Jewish people, Asian people, I try to find books that are written by that culture specifically, or at least the history when I can't, talking positively about them. I think I covered a few children's books that weren't quite written by sorry, yawning. Jewish people last year. Those usually come out in May. So, so yes, that is what I do. If you want to know, you'll also find a wide variety of other stuff. So, I do books for little kids because I have one. Various storybooks. I do more advanced stuff. This series, age recommendation, probably middle school and up. Just because, again, it does get into some in depth. And it really does depend on your kid. I mean, late elementary might be able to get a lot from this, but you know your kid's best. I'm recommending middle school and up, but that's me. But again, check out the channel. I also do fun stuff. I do fun books. I do book series. I do fun films. I grew up in the 80s, late 80s and 90s. Early 2000s, so I cover some fun stuff as well, just because it's fun, and I'm a homeschool parent. I know there's going to be days coming where I want to throw a movie on because I am sick, or I'm tired, or we just need a break. So there's always good to have those. So, alright, I need to finish this off before I fall asleep, because I have a small child, and it's almost 8 o'clock at night. So, and yes, small child, tired. But we also do travel. I also do travel videos. I'll be adding more education stuff and various different resources. In the case this year, I covered the Phoenix Zoo and our Odyssey of the Sea Aquarium. I'm in Arizona, and the Butterfly Wonderland, as well as some travel stuff. And I'll cover more homeschooling stuff as we go along. I think I'm going to throw in, by the time you see this, I hopefully have at least 2 board games up. Because that's a part of our learning, and I'll add more educational stuff, secular educational stuff, because we are secular homeschoolers, as we go along. So my daughter will be a little over 3 by the time you guys see this. She's closing in on 3 now. So, That is it. Like and subscribe. Leave a positive comment if you have one. Thank you.